All right, we're preparing for the Facebook Live. We want to thank you for joining us in this session today. I'm Leanne McManus, and I'm going to be moderating this session. And I'm going to hand it over in a minute to Sherry Oswald, who's my partner in crime. And she will be driving us, kind of running through the session this morning. But we like to make it interactive. So yesterday's session became really interactive between the two of us and with the audience. So Dan Lee was on the session yesterday afternoon and was very interactive in the chat and the Q&A. We love that. So I'm going to be watching the chat and Q&A. If you've got something that's like lively or timely in whatever Sherry's at, put it in the chat. If it's something that's communicative, maybe that's a hard word to say. If it's something that you're enjoying that isn't as much of a question, then go ahead and put it in the chat. If it's something that you know you have a question about, then that might make sense to put in the Q&A. So I can watch both locations, and then we'll involve those at the time. So I'm going to, give me one moment to post this on Facebook. And those of you that are friends with me are going to see it live on Facebook as well. Sherry, so we're going to get started. Can you just give them some housekeeping for 1 second while I get the Facebook thing up?
Sure, no problem. So a little bit of clarification. On the chat, you have an option at the bottom that you can send the chat to just the panelists or the panelists and the attendees. Make sure that if you want other people to see your feedback, go ahead and change that. If it's something you just want to say to us, change it to the panelists only. So that way everybody can see and you can interact and chat with each other. We kind of like that. You guys we learn as much from our attendees sometimes as we do that we know. So it's kind of nice to have all of your feedback and information as well. So officially kicking it off, I'm Sherry Oswald, and I am a Microsoft certified trainer and a Microsoft Office Specialist Master. That's always kind of a mouthful to say. And we were inspired by just the people around us, including our spouses, with the challenges everyone's having right now. If we all talk about this digital transformation, well, for a lot of us, digital transformation happened overnight. Literally overnight, and I just cringe every time I say the word literally anymore, but literally overnight, and we don't necessarily know what we have at our fingertips and have had because we didn't need to use it in a traditional work environment. But now in our new remote working environment, maybe we can give you some tips and tricks that will help you get through, maybe make you a little bit more productive, or help you demystify the tools that you have at your disposal now. All right, so again, Sherry Oswald, let me tell you a little bit more about me. Leanne is my moderator, Leanne McManus, also a Microsoft certified trainer, and she will be answering the questions in the Q&A. She may take those and present them to me so that I can answer them live as well. And we are very informal. You know, I watch some of these structured webinars. We like to be a whole lot more fun and organic, so feel free to add to the chat, to ask questions. I may ask Leanne's opinion. We may talk over each other. We try and be a little bit more fun.
We may call each other babe, which I did accidentally yesterday. So
it's like,
it's all good.
Yeah, she's my partner in crime and my sister from another mister, and we work together well for a reason, because we think a lot alike. All right, so here's a little bit about me. They call me Shortcut Sherry. I love keyboard shortcuts. It started out as a joke in one of my classes, and it's stuck. I've fully embraced it. It's my Facebook. It's my Twitter. I have a blog called shortcutsherry.com. My email is me@shortcutsherry.com, so feel free to jot any of that down and interact with me. I kind of want to be the new crabby office lady. If you guys remember the old crabby office lady, I love her. She was a little character that Microsoft had, and it's, ask me questions, because I love it when people stump me, because then I get an opportunity to learn something new as well. The hardest thing to remember is how to spell my name, which is S-H-A-R-I. My joke has always been that I answer to any spelling, but that doesn't work when you're working on the internet. So any of those, and I'll share these again at the end as well, so feel free to contact me. All right, I'm also a LinkedIn Learning author, and if you I also have videos on cliptraining.com and pluralsight.com, which I just saw this morning. They're offering 30 days for free on pluralsight.com. So feel free to check those out. They're giving them out for free. And I know that Leanne also has videos on Clip Training, which are, I want to say they're resold, I guess, to Pluralsight. So we're all over the place because everybody kind of shares their content and sells content back and forth. LinkedIn Learning, my specialty is SharePoint. So I have 4 SharePoint classes in there as well. All right, so Power Up Learning, that's who we are. Leanne and I both have our own companies, but we've come together as Power Up Learning. And we are modern workplace experts, and not just in Microsoft, but specifically we specialize in Microsoft. We are facilitators, meaning we're not just trainers. We can facilitate a room, and we part of that whole process is bringing the information from the people and making it relevant to them rather than just talking to them like most trainers do. That's our specialty. We do what we call immersive learning technique. So it's all hands-on. We like to make it about you and not just, here, blah, 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 in a book, now do something, blah, 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 do something. We like to facilitate the learning and in a different style. We're practitioners, meaning that we don't just teach, we do. Some people say, if you can't do, you teach. Well, we also do. We also get in the trenches with you guys. We're authors, not just for LinkedIn Learning, but we've worked with Microsoft in the education space and created some content for them. We do video training, we've created courseware, so both of us are authors as well. Change agents, and this is probably our passion. It's like, let's make you more productive. Let's get you better at your job and help you leverage the tools that are provided to you in a better way. And sometimes that requires change in behavior. So that's one of our specialties as well. Again, we're instructors, so we teach stuff, and we're consultants. So I've been a SharePoint consultant for almost 20 years. I even cringe at saying that. I've been working with SharePoint since before it was even called SharePoint. It was called Content Management Server. So it's kind of my passion. It's my baby, and everybody's adopting SharePoint now more than they ever have before. And if they haven't, they've been resisting it. They're like, I love Teams, I love OneDrive. I'm like, it's SharePoint, people. So SharePoint's at the base, at the foundation of all of that. Right. So I do not like to do death by PowerPoint. You can see I breeze through those pretty fast. I like to get hands-on and show you stuff. So let's go into a demo. All right, so I'm going to start out today working in Office 365. Those of you, we're going to start from the ground up. So some of you, this may be familiar to you. For some people, this might be like, oh, my company told me to log in here. I have no idea what I'm doing. So this is where we're going to start from today in this session. We also have another session today where we're going to dive deeper into Teams. And Leanne's going to be presenting that session. I'll be moderating for her. So we're going to kind of skim over Teams in this one, but we have a deep dive into Teams later today. All right, so here you are. They gave you your Office 365 account. They sent you home and they said, good luck. Now that's the football, and this is where we're starting. If you go to office.com, that is the URL where you can access all of your Office content. Now I'm going to give you a caution on this, and I actually just posted 10 videos in my blog and my YouTube channel that will help with some of this. The first one is logging in an in-private browser. If you are using your personal machine, however you log into that personal machine, it stores those credentials and makes kind of a problem. Sometimes when you're trying to log in, it's like, I thought you were Sherry. Well, are you Sherry at Hotmail? Are you Sherry at Power Up Learning? Which one are you? It doesn't know how to authenticate you. So one way to bypass that is use some of the in-private browsing options. In Chrome, it's called Incognito, new Incognito window. In Edge or Internet Explorer, you may not see it in the menu here, but they're always up here in the menu, regardless of which browser. In the settings, you'll have a new in private window or an incognito window. Taking that to a step further, if you are working from home from your personal device, which I didn't really even think was a scenario until a few days ago, we have a client that is highly secure, and they send everybody home. At work, they have a desktop computer. They don't have a laptop. They're not allowed to take anything out of the building. So now they're having to work from home from their personal device and interact with their content. And that changes the game when you're using the same machine. Sometimes you're sharing it with your children. So there is a video there that tells you how to create a separate profile on your computer so that none of your work stuff touches your personal stuff, regardless of who's logged in. Now, if you don't have that option or you're not there yet, you can use the incognito window or new in private window and log in at office.com, and it will ignore the credentials that you've logged in on your computer itself. All right, so Amy has been here before. I'm logging in as Amy. We have a demo environment, and Amy works for a company called Contoso. I'm going to sign in as Amy, and I have 2 different accounts on here. So this, if you have created separate accounts, it may ask you which one do you want to use. I'm going to use Amy, and her credentials are stored, so I didn't have to put in the password at this point. All right, so here is your dashboard. When you log into Office 365, this is what you're going to see. Let me give you a little tour around the window to get us started. Out here in the middle, we have our icons for the different applications that are in Office 365, and I'll explore that here in just a minute. Down here, up here in the upper right-hand corner, I'd like to point this out. As an Office 365 subscriber, depending on how your company has it deployed and what permissions you have up to 5 licenses for 5 different devices of Office 365. I want to say standard, but your company may have changed or not allowed that. So I don't know for sure what your situation is, but you can actually install Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Teams on your computer using the license, because you're now in a subscription model. That's what Office 365 is. We no longer have to wait for Office, 2003, then 2007, then 2010, then 2013, and wait 2 or 3 years for the new stuff to come out. Office 365 is a subscription-based service that as the new features are released, they are presented to you. Now, this is a good and a bad thing. You don't have to wait 2 to 3 years to get all the cool stuff and then feel like you're eating an elephant one bite at a time trying to get up to speed. The flip side of that is things change all the time, and it's a little unnerving sometimes, especially even as a trainer. People will say, hey, what's that? I'm like, I don't know, I just saw it today too. Things pop up and change, so you kind of have to be a little bit more flexible. Now, your company may decide what release schedule you're on, and that would determine how often you see those changes. All right, so Amy's up here, upper right-hand corner. You can tell who you're logged in as. When I was trying to work from the same profile on my computer with different accounts, because I'm a contractor, I have multiple clients and multiple logins, they kept conflicting with each other, and this drove me nuts. So if you're not seeing the stuff that you expect to see, double check your account to make sure that the browser and the applications are looking at you as the right person, the person you think you should be at that point. All right, I wear many hats. Here are your settings, so you can change your theme. These are kind of fun. Let's say you'd prefer to see the lovely ocean and palm trees, or maybe you're a digital person and would like to have that. You can change your theme. Dark mode seems to be the new thing. I haven't quite adapted to it yet, because when you're in an incognito window, it turns dark, and that's my visual cue that I'm in an incognito. So I don't necessarily like that one, but it's up to you guys. If you want to change it, it's up to you. This is a big one, customizing your notifications. When you're working in the browser, if you're logged in, every time you get an email, you get a pop-up window, a pop-up window, a pop-up window. And that can drive me crazy, especially if I'm presenting. So you can turn those notifications off if you want to, or customize the settings for those. Changing your password, make sure you write it down. If you change it, then you have to get to your IT department, and I'm sure a lot of you are probably struggling with that. Getting to the IT desk, they're overwhelmed right now. We need to give them a little bit of grace. They've got a lot on their plate. All right, so this is your settings panel. Upper left-hand corner, we have what's called the App Launcher button. This is the technical term, but we lovingly call this the Waffle Button. Now, the Waffle Button hides all of the cool apps. We have out here the ones you use most often that are here by default. This page will build and adapt as you start working in Office 365. You'll see that here's your recent files you've been working in, SharePoint sites you may have been visiting, OneDrive files you've been in. You can, let's say if this is an important presentation I'm working on, maybe I want to pin that one here. That will show up in my pinned items that are shared with me by other people. So these are actually in somebody else's OneDrive, and we'll talk about OneDrive here in a minute. Hover over anywhere you see somebody's name, and you have different ways to contact them. You can email them, you can chat with them right from here. I can see some organizational information about Karen from here. And then Discover. Discover allows you to go out and look for files that you have permission to see. This is a huge point. People get very freaked out when they start seeing that their content is out there. Well, these are in SharePoint sites that I'm a part of. Everything in Office 365 is security trimmed, meaning that if you don't have permission to see it, you wouldn't even know it exists, even if you search for it using this search option up here at the top. All right, so we have our standard applications here. Some look probably familiar to you. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote probably look familiar to you. Teams might be more familiar to you now. Some things may not be. So I'm going to click the app launcher here and select the All Apps link, and you can now see all of the applications that are in Office 365. So let's talk about what is an application. I always think of my cell phone when I think of applications, because we have a lot of little tiles, little squares on our phone that we download and install. Now, I was a die-hard Windows phone user forever, and it was like when I had to finally give it up because none of the apps were being supported anymore, I had a funeral for my Windows phone. And I was like, I'm not an app junkie anyway. Well, now I have an Android and I've become an app junkie, right? There's an app for that. Oh, there's an app for that. So I'm installing all of that. Why do we have all of those things on our phone? We have them because they're tools for us that we can use for different things. Ways that we can gather information or share information, or tracking our calendar or our tasks if we need to. Some of us have our stuff for our Fitbit, which I'm completely ignoring right now because I've not been good since we've been on quarantine. But we have tools for those, and some of the times they have a crossover. Like I have my Fitbit app, but I also have my FitnessPal, and there's a crossover between the functionality of those two. One tool just does the job that I'm looking for better than others. The same thing here. So we have different tools in the Microsoft Toolbox that allow you to communicate with people, to share information, to be productive, to manage your tasks if you need to, your calendar if you need to. So for example, as far as tasks go, we have 3 options. You have Outlook tasks, which most of us are familiar with. If we would go to Outlook, you would see tasks there. We also have Planner down here that helps us manage our tasks. And we have the new Microsoft To Do option, which is here. So all 3 of those help us keep on track for our tasks. So here's tasks from Outlook, and here's To Do, and here's Planner. When do you use which one? Well, it all depends. My to-do list, for me, I can create separate lists like a grocery list and say, if I go to the grocery store, here's the things I need to pick up. Or it may be, this is an event that I need to do that I'm working on. I'm a presenter, so I speak at a lot of events. I'm like, here's the things I need to do for that event. Those are for me, and you can actually now share them with other people. My tasks in Outlook are my tasks in Outlook. Planner lets you collaborate with other people. It's like a big Kanban board, if you're familiar with that. If you could imagine somebody created a big whiteboard and they put vertical lines on there with a Sharpie marker and had sticky notes, and you had different phases of a project or different phases of a process that you're working on. You can move those sticky notes from one to another and assign it to other people.
Hey,
So
Jen.
that,
Go ahead. No, you can finish that last thought. I just wanted to so you and I need to have I wish I should be on camera and put my hand up so I could be like, I have a comment from someone. Sorry to interrupt you, but Keitha asked a question, and I think this is good because, so she asked a question about the whiteboard. Is it fairly standard? I'm a big fan of physical whiteboards, as are we. And so I don't know if you want to talk through that. And the other thing that I remembered is we did not kick off and get any information from them via polls. It might be a good idea before we get too far into showing them this to see where they're at on that, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Yeah, let me go ahead and kick off the poll and I'll talk about whiteboard.
Excellent.
So go ahead and launch the first poll. So go ahead and let us know where you're at on your journey in your Office 365. So as you're answering that, I'll explain Whiteboard. So Whiteboard is a digital whiteboard, and it was kind of the little stepchild application there for a while. It didn't even really have its own icon. They finally gave it its own icon, and they're promoting it. I have a friend named Jonathan Weaver he wants to be the first Whiteboard MVP, and he's awesome. But at first he had to create his own t-shirt because there wasn't even a product team t-shirt that he could use. So Whiteboard lets you use a digital whiteboard. And I love this. If you've ever been on a conference call and you're the one on the other side of the line and everybody else is in a room and they're writing on the whiteboard and you can't see what they're doing, very frustrating. So Whiteboard has let me log in here as Amy. Pretty good interface. I would encourage you to use a touch screen because writing with a mouse is really not good. I prefer to use Whiteboard with my Surface. So here are my whiteboards. Here are the pens. Now this is a web version. There's always a web version, or most likely a web version, and a desktop version of the applications, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So there's limited capability in here. Unfortunately, I don't have the Whiteboard app installed on my presentation, my demo environment that I'm using, because I wasn't anticipating that. Maybe I should always set everything up. But so for example, I have my hello, here we go. We've got different 4 different pens. You can move this around if you need to. Oh, it lets you move your stuff. So if I want to move the whiteboard left or right, you can erase things. There's a lot more capability in the desktop version. There's like a ruler where you can draw things out. So absolutely use these. You can type text instead of just having to write. And you can prepare your whiteboards ahead of time and then present them in a meeting. And that, I think, is probably the biggest, you know, because you don't want to sit here and have to write everything out while everybody's watching you. Sometimes it's nice to have those queued up and available to you ahead of time. Yeah, so Leanne saying it's kind of like a smart board, and you're right, absolutely.
So I can say, so I got a couple things. So this is like me multitasking at the nth degree because I've got Facebook Live questions coming in. I've got all of our questions. So, and it looks like most people have done the poll, so I'll let you cover that in a second, but I have to share this because I've already been outed on Facebook Live. I was supposed to ask you from a certain person that you may know if we're going to be providing mimosas with these sessions going forward.
I think we should, but there's a lot of delivery services out there. I don't know if we could hit everybody, but yeah.
But Dan Lee's got good questions.
Bring your own mimosa.
That's right. Dan and some of the other people on the call and Keitha, they've got some good questions and conversation going on. So can I just downloaded on my device the other day, because Sherry and I actually were testing it in the browser version, and it's not really, we tried 2 things. We tried using the whiteboard in Zoom, and you can't collaborate very well with it.
Right,
sort of like a one person at a time. The desktop one, I don't know. We haven't tested how well you can collaborate, but as far as what you have feature wise, it is like being in front of the big Microsoft Hub board. So you have a lot of features. I would encourage you, if you can download that, do that locally on your device. I'll let you cover the poll now, Sherry, and I'll be quiet.
Okay, no problem. So I did have one person that hadn't logged in yet, and they just got it. So great, we were able to cover that for you. Hopefully that helped demystify it for you. Some of you are here looking for tips and tricks, so that's our specialty. We'd love to do that with you. All right, so how are we doing working remote? All of you are kind of on the yeah, I'm good, this is my normal mode. A lot of us do this normally. This is, I have a lot of, I've struggling with doing a bunch of videos on, you know, the realities of working from home. So if you have children, I'll give you one of my tidbits. My kids, when they were little, I've been working from home. My husband's a firefighter, so he's gone 24 hours, and I have always had something that I've done from home. And I had to train them early on. First of all, I had a refrigerator shelf and I had a pantry shelf, and I was, at any point if they were hungry, it's like anything on that shelf is fair game. It was always healthy things like yogurt and string cheese and fruit snacks, things like that. I didn't like them, you know, eating anything in the cupboard, but anything in here is fair game. And sometimes I had to divvy that out, but my kids were pretty good about not like eating everything up. Somebody was like, if I did that, they would all be gone in one day. They would eat it all, right? And to this day, my kids are extremely healthy. They eat often and they eat really well. And I think that's part of it. They always gave them healthy snacks. They don't drink soda or anything like that. The second thing was, if you have kids and you're on the phone, I always tell them, if you ask me now, the answer will be no. If you wait till I'm off the phone, you might get a yes. But if you ask me right now, the answer will be no. To this day, they walk in, see me on the phone, they walk right back out. And they're 25 and 23, or 26. He just turned 26. So, you know, your kids, you have to come to an understanding. They can't just come busting in on you all day long. And you can train them to do that, right? You know, sometimes the spouse doesn't do that as much as I wish you would. He comes in, I'm like waving him off. So, you know, you kind of have to come to an understanding with your family. It's a different time, right?
Hey Sherry, one more thought I have really quick because I'm sort of punting this in the middle of this, but I've already posted to everybody. They all have a raise their hand feature. So I think as you go through like as you're continuing through this, if you have a question for them or you want to see who's done whatever, who knows something, ask them to raise their hands and we'll be able to see that.
Okay, great. Alrighty, so we have, let's talk about the desktop. We talked about the apps, which are the web version of things. They call them web apps. So you have like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote. Those are the applications that are typically or traditionally on your own computer for most people. You also now have a web version of these applications. So for example, if I were to go to this chemical spill procedure that Jeff was working on, it may ask me 20 times to be Amy. All right, so here's that document that we were working on, and it's actually being stored in Karen Berg. If you see over here, it says Karen Berg, her documents. Karen owns this document. Instead of emailing things around to people, it's maybe even downloading your own copy, and then the person that owns it updates and has to send you a new copy. Let them own it. Let them have it in their OneDrive. So OneDrive is where you store your files. So this is the desktop or the web version of Word. We also have a web version of Excel. So from here, I can open I don't have any recent documents this person's been working on, but I can create a new blank spreadsheet if I want to. And we also have PowerPoint. So here's a presentation we've been working on, or I can create a brand new one. So I'm going to create a new one here. And say this is for the virtual, oops. Everything's going virtual right now. Even I just announced that Ignite's going to be virtual now. Kittens just died for me. That's my favorite event of the whole year. So virtual webinar. And I'm going to give it a design. So these are the designer options now, which are kind of cool. So if I have other people that I need to help me working on this webinar, instead of emailing it around and asking people to add their content, first of all, I'm going to give it a new name here. I'm going to call it virtual webinar. So this is a little, one of those tricks that you might not know. You can rename the file right here in the browser window. This document's being stored in Amy Albert's OneDrive. Now, if I need somebody else to help me with this file, I'm going to, instead of emailing it to the next person and emailing it to the next person, I'm just going to share this file. And I'm going to share it with Karen. So Karen Berg is going to help me with this. There is an option up here. I always like to point this out. Anyone with a link can edit. So I'm going to click the arrow. Right now, anyone with the link can edit this document. Right here is a checkbox. This is allow editing. You can deselect that and you're sharing it with them, but they can only view it. You can set an expiration date. So it's like, I just want you to help me with this for the next week, and I don't want to have to remember to go back and take their permissions away from them. So I'm going to set an expiration date for them to, I want you to just work on this until next Friday, because then I have to turn it in, and after that, it's going to reject them. If you need another level of security, you can set a password, and then you'd have to share that password separately with the person that you're going to be working with. And this block download is probably more relevant to when people are, if you allow them to edit, then they can edit, but you can take it away and you can block the download. So they can't download this file to their computer. So some of the features cancel out other features. Just keep that in mind and play with it and see which way it comes across. Right now, people in Contosa with the link, this is another option. Anyone in my company that has a link would be able to open and edit that document. And then we have people with existing access. I'm just sharing a link with them. Maybe we're working on it and they can't find the link, so I just want to share it with them again. It'll send them an email. Or just specific people. So I could say specific people, and then back when I click apply, this is the only person that could edit that file. It would be Karen. So I'm going to leave it at that. Say, please help with the presentation. And I can click send. Now down here at the bottom, I can copy a link. So if I have 30 people I want to send this to, I don't want to have to sit there and add 30 people to this list. I can just, use the link, copy the link, and then put it in an Outlook or email account or email message or in a Teams if I needed to. Okay, so I'm going to click send. Now Karen's going to get an email. Now I have Karen open in another browser over here. So here's Karen, and in her Outlook, she's going to have a notification, hopefully. Here we go. All right, come on, Karen, wake up. Oh, right here. Ended up in my other inbox, so we'll talk about that here in a second. So here's the virtual webinar. I can open that file from here. So remember, I'm Karen in this screen, so I'm going to put her on the right. I'm Amy in this screen. I'm going to put her on the left. There's one of my favorite keyboard shortcuts: window right, window left, window up, window down. Lets you control your windows. And if you have multiple monitors like me, it actually helps you. You can move them from one screen to the next as well with that one. All right, so I'm getting a notification that Karen has used the link to the virtual webinar. Now, here, this is Amy, or I'm sorry, this is Karen over here, the person I shared it with. This is, no, I'm sorry, this is Karen who I shared it with. This is Amy who owns the document. So I'm going to add a new slide here. Give it another title slide. And as Karen, I'm going to add a new slide and do a comparison slide. And as you can see, they're simultaneously seeing the changes each other are making. If you hover over, there's a little icon that says there's some unread changes on this one. I can see Karen is working right here. From Karen, you should be able to see Amy working here. So see Amy just popped up on that one. You can see where people are working and see their changes live, which is really nice. Now we had a question yesterday. If I were to add the title to this one, I kind of like this design. It's pretty cool. That one's a new one.
I was just thinking this.
You really
liking this.
I kind of like it. If I try to edit this at the same time, it's going to block me. So it's telling me right here, somebody else is trying to edit right there. So if you, it does not let you edit the exact same element at the exact same time in a PowerPoint presentation. So when I say element, I mean a text box, a picture, a bullet point. It doesn't let you edit the same element at the same time. Now in Word, you can't edit the same paragraph at the same time. In Excel, you cannot edit the same cell at the same time. And OneNote's a free-for-all. People just get in there and do whatever they want to. So this is called co-authoring, allowing you to edit and share and work on documents together. Now, the nice thing about this is you could be on a Teams meeting and working on these documents together. And Leanne's going to share that more this afternoon. Leanne,
Can I bring up a couple
yeah,
things really quick?
I was just saying, what do you want to share? Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, you could tell, you can almost hear it through the phone line, right? Couple things, because yesterday in the session, I said, I'm not even sure how many people can share, and you knew the number, what'd you say, 255?
Right. It's
Which
like
we do not advise.
No. Why you would do that, I don't know.
But here's one of my favorite things about the co-authoring and how it works. Two things. And I posted some of this in our chat. But one is that you don't have to worry about someone mistakenly maybe deleting something that you did. So if somebody deleted that slide too, you can always go back because version control is on, whether it's in OneDrive for Business or it's in SharePoint. So knowing that kind of can help relieve some of the stress if you're worried about it. Number two, I've actually liked this feature. When I used to have to work, I'm thinking like when I first started working in the early 2000s, not when I first started working, but when I was working with other people and having to work on a document, and we used to have to save it and email it and get it back, and you manage the 18 different versions and all of that.
Right, yeah, and they use different fonts or different layouts.
Every final,
yeah, exactly.
whatever. But what I find is really helpful, if you think about, you could have your entire team. I know there's a lot of people here from the same organization. All of you could be in whatever the document is. You're tracking whatever your project is. You need to work on your own areas. Not so much that we can all be in at the same time, which is beautiful, but even more so, I don't have to wait for you. That was the thing that I used to get irritated with the old SharePoint way, is it had to be checked out and checked in, and I could only access it once it was available with the check-in. So now when it's this way, I can access it in 3 in the morning, and you don't have to do a handoff to me. So if you think about it in a different way, there's more to the co-authoring even than the simultaneous part.
Absolutely.
That's it. Yep.
No more frustration. And I, while you were speaking, I was like, under the File tab on Info is the version history. So if somebody messes up your document, you can revert it back to a previous version.
And we have a question here.
And then save a copy on that.
Okay, so Dan's got a question. So what about resharing? Adding and removing people from shared documents, risk of having multiple copies of the file with different sharing views or permissions.
The people cannot reshare your document unless they already have permission to be in that document. So let's say I give permission, Karen gives permission to Amy, and Amy only. Amy can't then give permission to Jeff, unless Karen said anybody with a link in my company, use that option for the share. Anyone with my company with this link can view this file. So if it depends on how it was shared, and so we need to be cognizant of that. And that's why people just click the share button and then they type in somebody's name and then they hit OK, and they don't realize there's all those other options in the background in that secondary share screen. So I always like to show that.
Yeah, so and actually Dan's following up on his question, and this is the thing that I think is critical. Specifically, let's make sure we're talking same. We're talking about a OneDrive for Business file. SharePoint
Correct.
is different. So OneDrive for Business, if I forget, if it was Karen's file and she shared it with Amy, and Amy potentially, depending on the way that Sherry had shared it, right? She could forward it to Jeff or give Jeff editing rights if that was turned on. But at any point, Karen owns that file. She can go into her OneDrive and take away all rights from everybody.
And that's the perfect transition, because that's exactly where I was going next. I love that you're thinking that way, because you're with me, right? People are like, oh, they're a lot of people get protective over their stuff. So I'm not sharing with anybody. I'm just going to email it them because I don't want them to mess it up. Well, so where is this file created, right? I created it in the browser. Let's talk about where it was created and how we control that. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yes, and then one more question to go on to that you can show in there. He said Dan's got a point that and this happens all the time. Someone left the project and now we need other people that are collaborating on it. This is sort of the hard part of owning the file and sharing it out. When Sherry showed those permission options when you were doing it, there actually was you could put a link date that it is no longer available, because it's kind of on you to go back and manage that. You have to remember. So she's going to show you all that beautiful area right now.
Yeah, and we'll talk about what to use when as well, because that's another point, right? Okay, so I'm going to minimize Karen here and just maximize Amy. So let's say we're done working on this document together, and now we want to get back to it. First of all, it's being stored in my documents, and this is a breadcrumb trail back to my documents. Oh, I should point that out actually. In Karen, I have the same link that says documents, but when I click here, takes me where this file is being stored. When you create it using the online applications, it stores it in OneDrive. This is Amy's OneDrive. I can only see 2 of her documents, even though I have a link back to her library. I can only see the documents that she has shared with me, period. There could be 5,000 documents in here, and you would not be able to see them. Okay, so pointing that out, they are permission shown. So let's look at Amy's version or her view of her documents, and clicking the link backwards. Here's all of the files that are in her document library, including that new webinar that we just worked on. Okay, so this is, these little pop-ups. So here I'm party fouling, and this is one of the things I like to point out to people. When you're working in Office 365, like I mentioned at the beginning of this session, everything changes all the time. They're adding new features as they are being developed, and you don't have to wait 2 or 3 years for them anymore. The way that it lets you know what's new or different from the last time you accessed a tool is these little pop-up windows. And everybody just nukes them. It's like, get out of my way, I'm trying to work here. No, read them, because it might be the one thing that you're like, oh, where's this been my whole life? Because the development of the applications come from you, the users. There's a tool called User Voice. So it's like outlook.uservoice.com or teams.uservoice.com or onenote.uservoice.com. It's always the product name and the uservoice.com. You can go out there and make suggestions and vote up other people's suggestions. And that's how these features come about. So make sure you use those. And they're usually under the feedback option up here as well. So under the help, they'll have a little feedback option for you. All right, so I'm in OneDrive. So I could have, if I wanted to, go directly to OneDrive. I don't have to go to a file and then get back there. Looks like my screen has frozen. Let me refresh this. From the Waffle Button, there, it's finally starting to react. On OneDrive, the same thing here. So what is OneDrive? OneDrive is your storage that you have for what I call your personal work documents, not your personal documents. And I say that, and I think it should have been something that was probably common sense, but I'm amazed at what I see in people's OneDrives. That people have, I had a gentleman that had his personal only copy of his divorce papers in his OneDrive because he didn't have another computer. He was storing it there. And I have a background in human resources. One of the reasons I got out of it is because I got tired of laying people off all the time. And you never know when your job will end. Unfortunately, that's just the, the state of the world right now. And if you have all of your personal documents in your OneDrive, you have now lost access to your stuff. So OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, there's two different things. If you have a Microsoft-based email account like Hotmail, Outlook.com, MSN.com, and even if you register your Gmail or your Yahoo account as a Microsoft account, you have access to having I think it's 5 gigabytes of storage in the cloud. Not big, but you can always add more, or if you invite friends, they give you a bigger OneDrive. So that is meant for your personal documents. This is for your personal work documents. So to me, where I equate this in the paper world is that file folder or file drawer that used to be underneath my desk at my desk. I had the key to it. These are the things I'm working on or I refer to all the time. If somebody came up and said, hey, I need to work on that project that we were working on, can I have those files? I could reach in my drawer, hand it to them, let them work on it, just like we did with that presentation, and then eventually, they bring it back and I put it back in my drawer and I lock it up. I have control of these. Now, to your point, Dan, when asking about when would it, if I had people that were coming or going, or had different people onboarding or offboarding off of a project, is that something that I want to manage in my OneDrive? Probably not. This is, once, let's say this presentation is done, this doesn't belong to me anymore. I probably need to store it someplace else where my team has access to that. So SharePoint, to me, in the physical world, if I could make a correlation there, is like that big file cabinet that's out in the hallway of your department. Certain people have access to it and can control who gets in and who doesn't get into the drawers, but there's a gatekeeper for those documents, but those are the documents that should be accessible to anyone within an organization. Those are, in my opinion, the formal documentation in your organization goes in SharePoint. The other piece of that, which is now, it's not new, but it's new to a lot of people, is Microsoft Teams. So to your point, if I wanted to work on this webinar file and I don't want everybody getting in and getting out, and I'm having to control all their permissions all the time, instead of keeping it here, I'm going to move it. I'm going to move it to the marketing team, for example, and put it in the events channel, and then anybody who's part of the marketing team now has access to that file. I don't have to control the permissions anymore because it's controlled by whoever's managing the team. So choosing the right space to collaborate with people is one of the bigger decisions you need to make, right? So I don't want somebody coming and getting my drawer every time they're looking for the employee manual. Put it somewhere where everybody else has access to it. All right, so if, for example, this bring your work draft option is also shared. See, most of these say private and this one says shared. I can control who it's shared with. So let's say I need I'm not going to put Krista Geller's employee review into a Teams channel or somewhere for somebody else to see it. Just myself and maybe Karen need to work on this employee review. So I'm going to share this one by selecting the file, clicking the share option. Same thing from within a file like we did with PowerPoint. I can share this with Karen. We have the same options for anyone with a link, anyone with access, specific people, our passwords, our expirations, all of that. and we need this done by tomorrow. And then send that over to Karen. You'll see this will update to say shared here in just a moment. Or I'm going to refresh the window. There, you see it always, I'm just not patient enough. I'm like, come on, show up. All right. Now that it's shared, if I click the shared option, let's say it's a week from now where she's given her access, and maybe now I want Jeff to put his feedback in there as well. Here's the owner. Here are the direct access people. So I can grant access, let's say, to Jeff. And I'm giving him the permission to edit that file and grant him access. He's going to get an email. Here's the link that I shared with Karen. If I want to kill the access with anybody using that link, I click here and I can delete the link. Anyone with this link, it will be affected. So I'm just going to delete the link so people can't get to it with the link. Only the people that have direct access would be able to work on that document, or I can completely stop sharing. All right, so you can control who has access, how much, whether it's just reviewing or looking at it or editing the document, all from here. Keeping track of what you have shared can be a little bit frustrating sometimes, so I want to point out a couple of things here on the left-hand side. First is the recent, so here's the files that you've been working on recently. Here are the files that are shared either with you, so here's our files from around my organization that have been shared with me, or shared by me. There's another link up here. Here's the ones that are currently shared with other people. It's like, oh, I didn't mean for this not to be shared and I don't want to share this anymore. I can manage the access from here and stop giving access to everyone. Okay.
This is a good time, I think, for everybody who's watching. We've got people on Facebook Live who won't be able to contribute to this, but can you just tell us real quick by clicking, if it's a yes, click on the raise of your hands if you're currently using OneDrive for Business regularly in your organization. So click the little raise hand if you are using it. And so far, it looks like only a few people. Okay, we got a couple people in the call. So, and the other thing I want to lead up on this is we're having the conversation about OneDrive, and so I'm just going to read one of the comments. I have a lot of OneDrive for Business sharing in the company private space, but I think it should be sharing in Teams or SharePoint group, and that's where they should be sharing for ad hoc, sharing versus group sharing. I got to practice that. So can you high level, Sherry, just kind of give some guidance on the best practices of sharing? I'm going to lower everyone's hands. Thanks.
Okay, so sharing, Dan, if you can give me some clarification, sharing as far as editing and co-authoring together, or just being able to review and look at documentation?
And I think you may have already said this, Sherry, too, but okay. We typically explain to people, he's right, I think he'll probably be writing that. He said review and documentation. But we usually say when you're thinking about it, if you're sitting down at your computer and you have your example of the file cabinet, right, and where it's at. But when I'm trying to give an example of somebody, I'll say, let's say I'm the HR director and I just took over this role, right? So I'm brand new to the company and I'm going to start working on some documents, and I'm creating, as an example, something that I'm going to track, how long does it take my department to do something? That's something that's for me that I probably don't need, unless I need them to contribute and help, like tell me what they're tracking or whatever. That's going to be a OneDrive type of thing. If I've inherited this position and the old HR director was there and I'm going to be using those files and now I want my team to be working on these so that they can get it ready for the company, that's something that's more of a that should be in SharePoint. Now, the Teams versus SharePoint is going to be something we can discuss actually in my session later. That might be a good time to do it. But any other guidance you want to give there, Sherry, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I always go back to, because again, I'm an architect. So to me, the SharePoint location. So if I were to go out here and go to the SharePoint option, select SharePoint, and I'd be Amy. I'm logged in as Amy up here. I don't know why it keeps asking me. Here's some of those pop-ups we shouldn't ignore. You're welcome to SharePoint. It's the first time she's been to SharePoint. Search, discover, content, sites and activities. So make sure you read those. All right, so in our SharePoint site, we have a formal site for our manufacturing division, a formal site for our facilities division. So your formal documentation, your policies, your procedures, your forms that you need, that if they're not electronic forms, so like HR would have your time off request for form, you know, and all those until they go digital, when we hopefully get to that point someday, stop killing trees. Our training site, our accounting site, these are the formal locations that we would collaborate, share, and put that documentation that is already been signed off on, you know, again, policies, procedures, formal documentation. When I think of Teams, now here's the secret behind Teams. When I think of Teams, this is more of an informal workspace. This is where we collaborate and share with each other. We have content that we want people to have and be able to access easily for reference. So I'm going to go to my Teams here. Here's my marketing team, and remember that awards, events is where I posted that file. Here's the webinar presentation that we previously moved here a little bit ago. And this was where I would collaborate on this document. Now, let's say this is my HR department and my employee relations team that I'm working with, and we're working on the new version of the employee relations manual because there's been a policy change and we need to make sure that that's up to date. In the end, this might be where the working copy of that document is, but I'm going to share it in the formal SharePoint site, because that's where I want the only current findable version of that document should be in one place. And in my opinion, those should be document centers at each function of the company, but that's a whole other story. All right, so here in the Open in SharePoint, just to let you know, there is a SharePoint site behind here. So note the marketing team channels here are general awards, campaigns, events, and products. If I open this in SharePoint, behind the scenes where those documents are being stored, again, here's our little pop-ups, make sure you read them. There is a correlating folder. Whenever you create a new channel, it creates a new folder in the document library in SharePoint behind the scenes in Teams. So things like checking documents in and checking documents out, or having higher level versioning like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then the next published version is 2.0, and then we work on it again, it's 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and the next published version is 3.0. You can't do that, or it's not readily apparent in Teams, but that capability is available in the document library that sits behind there. So, you know, when people say, when should I work where, it really depends on what features you need, who needs access to it, how much you want to sit there and kick people out and add people to it. It's all up to you. So if that helps, does that help kind of what to use when? I know it's a lot in a short amount of time. I did do some videos on that on my blog too. So.
Yeah, and we can talk about this more in my session later today. Yeah. But and this actually could turn into a whole thing, right? Because SharePoint, Dan and I are chatting about, you know, SharePoint Online coming from Teams versus the traditional SharePoint. Right now, like when Sherry's talking about traditional SharePoint, let's assume we're talking about it still being in Office 365. Correct. It's still SharePoint Online, but Teams sets it up slightly different than how if you just went in as a SharePoint administrator and want to spin up a SharePoint site and make the granular permissions very specific. That's different.
Right.
If I could sum it up quickly.
Yeah, and the other thing is some of your organizations may still have SharePoint on premises, which means it's on a server somewhere in your buildings, and somebody is managing that. So it just depends on where you are in your journey to Office 365, and you cannot share a file from OneDrive to SharePoint on-prem. Yeah, so it may not be available to you to move that to the SharePoint site that you're expecting, because they have to be SharePoint Online. Otherwise, you'd have to download it, go to that other SharePoint site and upload it somewhere else. So they aren't connected, and there's security reasons for that as well. So there's not necessarily. Sometimes they're connected, sometimes they're not. Again, there's so many ways that you can configure. We have what's called a hybrid configuration that might be available to you. It just all depends on how your company has released those. All right, so let's put a little bow on OneDrive for me. So OneDrive, another I think, highly overlooked feature that I want to share with you. And this is there's a big caution here I want to make for you guys before you do this. The tendency when you move to OneDrive is everybody goes out to their network drive, and you can literally drag and drop your content. So I'm just going to dock this window here, bring up File Explorer. Let's say I have documents here that I want in my OneDrive, and you can drag and drop from one folder into OneDrive, and it's uploading the item. I'm going to encourage you not to do that in your network drives, because highly likely you have a hierarchy of folders that you have built over time, for some people a really, really long time, and folders in a web environment are not friends. I don't want to, you say they're bad, but they're not good. They're not our friends, but it may not necessarily be bad. Used in limitation, it's okay. I want you to notice when I go into BI documents here, how long this web address becomes. And at the end where it says BI percentage 20 documents, every time you have a space in the name of a folder, it adds a percentage 20. There is this gorgeous connection between these documents. So if I want to open this file in the app, which means opening it directly in Microsoft Word and be able to co-author using the full version of the application, this connection breaks if the file path to this file exceeds 255 characters. So every folder that you add to that, folder and then a folder and then a folder and a folder, adds to the length of that file path. And it's actually called a URL, Universal Resource Locator, which is this web address here at the top. I'm trying not to be too technical, but the more folders you have, the longer your names are, the more spaces in your names, everything adds to the length of that URL. And this, I had a project I worked on for a nonprofit here, and I warned them, and I warned them, and I warned them, and it came down to crunch time, and they were trying to do a bunch of standards, and they're like, oh, I can't get in, I have to download. I'm like, I told you so. They didn't listen to me, right? So you want to make sure that you are looking at that. So first of all, don't drag and drop everything over in the hierarchy that you already have. See if you can short your names if you can. The second thing is to remember you have a terabyte of storage in the cloud. That is a huge amount of space. It's 1,000 gigs for those of you that, most people know what a gig is. A terabyte is a whole other thing. So it's 1,000 gigabytes of information. That's a lot of space. And you have the ability, and in this world right now, the internet's been a little bit slow and clunky for us recently. We have the ability to sync the content from our OneDrive to our local machine. And you can sync different content to different machines. I travel a lot for my job, and some content I need to have regardless of where I'm actually working. Sometimes it's on an airplane. So I'm going to just select the sync option here. It's going to sync to OneDrive. I'm going to say yes, please. And it knows who I am because I'm logged into the browser using the address. Otherwise, it may ask you for your email address. I'm going to click sign in. And what it is now doing is it's creating a folder here under this location. See, every person that uses a computer has a user folder at the C users location, C drive users folder. So I'm going to ahead and click next here. And it's doing some funny things. Okay, so I'm going to click next. So now here are those, it's training me. Share your files and folders. There's little icons right here. I can share directly from my computer if I want to. These little icons are important. The first one is this is online only, meaning it's what we call file on demand. It's actually living on the in the cloud in your OneDrive. It is not on your desktop computer until you ask for it. Then it will bring a local copy down to your computer. On this device means it's on your computer, so if I were to get on an airplane, I would be able to access this file no matter what. If it's online only and I'm disconnected from the internet, I would not be able to get to this file yet until I'm on the internet. And believe me, go in flight is not worth it anymore. All right, and always available, this means that it's on my computer, always keep this on my device. So look for those little icons, and we'll show you those here in a second. If you want to use the mobile app, all of the applications in Office 365 have their own mobile version, most of them. So check those out, and you can use those. Okay. I actually had a organization that my husband is the captain in the fire department here, and the people that do the dispatch software is a company. They have a big convention, and we went out there, and the owner of the company is not real happy with Microsoft. He's had kind of a bad relationship with them in the past because he was a coder and he created all the software himself, and then went to the .NET platform. He had to rewrite the whole thing. He was a little frustrated, but he went to present at the conference. He was like 5 minutes from when he had to present his keynote, and he couldn't open his PowerPoint. And I said, just have your assistant put it in OneDrive, and then you can. And he presented it from his iPhone. It's like, dude, how cool is that? So, you know, there's a lot to be said right now, especially when we're not sure about what our internet access is going to be, that we can still get to our stuff even with our phone, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click later here on that one, and then open the OneDrive folder. So it's telling me I'm syncing my OneDrive, and here is that local copy of that OneDrive content on my computer. Notice the little icons. These are the ones that are on demand. So it will not be brought down to my computer until I ask for it to be brought down. And I can either open it and it will download it and put the copy here, or if you right click on it and say keep always on this device, maybe this is one I work on all the time, you see this little sync, and then there's a little green check mark, meaning this is always on this device. Okay.
Can
So
I highlight one little thing really quick here that you covered it when you were first syncing with the OneDrive, but the ones that say the middle one, right? Is that the checkbox one? So the free up space one. So if you're, because I have a device right now that I'm using that is, I love it, but it does not have very big storage. So if I know I want to travel and I want to have access to it, but as soon as I'm done working, you can come in and you can just have it set to the free up space. I think she can show you, you can right click and you can choose it.
Right here.
The important thing to just note about that is that when you have it on, it's on there, but you have it set to free up space instead of always keep on this device, then when your computer is looking to release some storage for you, those are the ones that'll go first, even without you having to tell it to release it. That's what I like about that feature.
Yep, it's nice. So these, so if you have already, I want to give you a little tip. So I'm going to put this over on the left-hand side, and the OneDrive files over here on the right-hand side. So here is my web version of my OneDrive. Here's my synchronized local copy of the documentation that is there. Let's say I want to work on this document with Krista Geller. I can share it from here. I can also share it from here. So I can give access to people from here if I need to, or use the share option. And I get the same option from my desktop computer. Now, why is this important? If I'm offline, I can share it right now, and the next time that I'm on the internet, it will go ahead and share the file. Any changes that I make on this document, if I open this up, again, this is on my desktop computer. Let's say I'm just going to change this to red. Oops. Why is it blocked? Cancel. Okay, that one was not a happy one. Oh, it doesn't. See, here's that thing. This is case in point. I'm trying to use two different users in the same browser. It thinks I'm Karen, and I tried to open it from Amy's OneDrive, so it doesn't like it. So it reverted me back to Karen in my, because I'm signed in as Karen in my Word
It's actually a good security feature though, right?
Yeah, it is. But this is where at the beginning when I talked about conflicting profiles, where are you Karen or are you Amy? This is what you're going to get, and it's extremely annoying, which is why you should create a separate profile on your computer if you had to. All right, so any changes that I make here are updated here. So let's say I want to create a new folder. I'm going to create a new folder for the performance reviews. Look what's happening over here. I have a new folder, and in a second it's going to rename itself. Now here's Krista's performance review, so I'm going to drag that in there. Here's the performance review form. I'm going to drag that in there. Watch what happens over here. All this is synchronizing. There it goes. So there goes those files. So everything when I'm on the internet synchronizes. I can make these changes while I'm not on the internet. So if it's really slow or clunky.
So this is what it's like being a work from home warrior. We actually just lost Sherry. Her internet went down. She'll join us back in a minute, but let's continue our conversation. So we do have some feedback coming from the chat, and Darian, sorry, that's exactly right. I think it can be really confusing. Even using the term sync is a little misleading to some people. So I think Sherry's leaving. She's going to join back in, but let's have a conversation around that for a second. So when you sync your device, with a OneDrive document library, or you sync your device with a SharePoint document library. It's really doing the same thing. And the syncing is just saying, I want to build a connection between the cloud where these are housed and my device where I'm at. So it's not actually stored. It still is housed in the cloud, but the relationship and the updates happen on your device. Okay, so let's see. I have some chat going on. You got, okay, that makes sense. And being able to access the cloud from files is a new way of viewing. Yes. Here's the other thing to think about that is, like I explained with this Asus I have, it's an awesome laptop, but I got it a few years ago and the storage is not very good. It's not very big. And I'm I use a lot of storage. I load a lot of programs. So it doesn't take very long before it's used up. Having things in the cloud and just knowing that I don't have to have everything synced in that library, that I just can choose on the fly how she was showing that, my environment.
Sorry about that, you guys. My whole internet just dropped. So case in point, if your internet drops, I'm not sure where I left off right there, you guys.
So we actually had a conversation around syncing and on the devices and everything. So go ahead and reshare your screen, Sherry. I think we're good. We had a little conversation around that, and they didn't really understand or have good experience understanding how syncing to your device works. So that was perfect.
Okay, great. All right, so yeah, I just had to switch over to the hotspot on my phone because my internet completely dropped. Okay, so here we have our so I was talking about Selective Sync. So if we right-click on here and choose the settings, and I don't need these files on my computer because they are they're feeding Power BI dashboards that only work online anyway. They don't do me any good on my computer. When I click OK here, notice how they disappeared here, but they still are in my OneDrive. I'm just going to refresh the window here to prove it to you that they're still there. Okay, I didn't delete them here, so you can choose which files that you add. Now, I personally have a folder that I call Briefcase, and for some of you may remember Briefcase from forever ago, and that's the stuff, it's like when I'm working on it, that way I only have to sync one folder. I don't have to sync everything and take it with me when I get on an airplane, and then I always have the Briefcase synced to all of my documents libraries, or to all my devices, regardless of which one I'm in.
Can I add one more point from something that I discussed when you were off? Because
Sure.
I made mention that you can do the exact same syncing from a SharePoint document library. So she doesn't, looking at her file explorer, you don't see one that says, you see OneDrive Contoso, but in your organization, you would see your company name and it would have the SharePoint logo. And then whatever document libraries you have synced would show there. So it's separate than OneDrive. So you keep those distinct just in viewership even in how you see them.
And how you see them. Yep, and it's perfect. All right, so we have the OneDrive client that does the syncing. It'll say syncing to your OneDrive. We're like, wait, no, I wanted to sync my Teams library. It does that as well. So to your point, Leanne, so if I were to go out to Teams and choose one of the file libraries from, let's say, the marketing team, right? We had that events files. I have the same option here. So it's getting ready to sync. And you see now I have another section over here where it says Contoso, and here's the marketing team campaigns and the marketing team events. So you'll see it has a little building and then the name of the company. So that's a big one right there, to be able to work with those files offline in case you lose your internet connection like I just did, right? You always
right, well, and thinking about that, then you don't have to have somebody email you the file. you're not dealing, you don't want to separate and have multiple versions going on. So if you have those files synced, you could be working on it. And if it's like she showed the co-authoring earlier, what you're working on offline then gets synced up with whatever other changes other people made in that same file in the same location when you get back connected online.
Right, and it's important. Now, keep in mind, if you drag and drop your entire library into your OneDrive, or everything on your network drive into your OneDrive, and you sync it down, you could blow up your OneDrive or your hard drive on your computer, because guaranteed you don't have a terabyte of space. Most people do not on their laptop or their desktop computers. I think mine's 100 gigs, and I have it split up into, I think I have a terabyte. I have it split up into different hard drive sizes, so that's a whole other thing. But pay attention to that, because if you look at your computer, I'm just going to right click here and explore and show you the properties. This will show you how much space you have. And right now, I have 78 gigs. So I know if I'm going to sync content, then I'm going to use that 78 gigs. But keep in mind also, every single user on your computer is using that exact same amount of space. So if you put 70 in here and then the next person comes in and says, I'm going to put 70, and you're all synchronizing, guess what? You're going to fill up your hard drive, and you won't be able to, it's going to be a mess. So first of all, organize your stuff first. Don't necessarily sync it down. If you've already brought that content into your OneDrive and you didn't know, it's like, oh, I want to sync it now, but I put everything in there already, I would do selective sync and bring certain folders and get those organized in certain folders. So how do you organize those? Let's talk about that. There's a web usability standard that everything you should be able to access on the internet should be within 3 clicks. So 3 clicks from start point to end point. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get back to OneDrive here. All right, 3 clicks to get to your content. So I always go back to my paper world. This right here is my file cabinet. In a file cabinet, you have a limitation of a pendaflex. You have a drawer, a pendaflex, and then a manila folder. If I had to organize my paper using that, I would not put a manila folder inside a manila folder inside a manila folder inside a manila folder inside a manila. I'd figure out a way to flatten that a little bit. So if you can figure out in a paper world, how would I file this so that it would be a drawer, a pendaflex, and then a manila folder, and then my papers go in there, there's your 3-click analogy as well. Okay, it also flattens it and minimizes the possibility that you would meet that 255 character limit on your file storage. All right, that's all I have for the official stuff. We want to know from you, what are you interested in? What are you wanting to know more about? And what would be helpful to you? So please feel free to put it in the chat window or the questions. I'm happy to demo something. We also would love to know what your favorite thing was today that was helpful to you, and if you have any suggestions for future webinars, because this is us giving back. We just want to have the opportunity to work with you on those. And just to let you know, when it killed my meeting, Leanne, I don't have any chat or
Okay.
or history. It died for me. So if there was anything in there that I missed, please let me know.
Okay. Would you do me a favor? If we're waiting for everybody, if you want to type either into the Q&A if you have questions or something you'd like to see in the chat, that works too. Will you, for me, because I think we had some cool things we covered yesterday, and they don't have to go in deep dive, but go into OA and show some of the things in OA. But one of the things that people that are new to Office 365 may not realize, the benefit of using files that are in the cloud when you're sending an email. Right? So I think that's a good one to show. And there's some cool features between using Outlook in the cloud and then also using Outlook the client. And I have a preference of using Outlook the client, but there's some new kind of cool features that are in the cloud that I don't have in the client.
Oh, very cool. All right, so here is Outlook in the cloud, so Office web app, if you want to. Again, our little teaching moments here, time to learn. Make sure you read those. Outlook Web Access, or Outlook Web Application as it's called now, is so much better than it used to be. It was really clunky before. One of the things I love about it is the ability to just right click on something and you don't get web-based options in the context menu. You get real things like I want to move, or I want to copy, or I want to flag this one, or I want to pin this one. And, how do we, assign policies? This is a big one for me. Let's say I'm getting I'm getting announcements for something that in a week or a month are no good to me. This is like a self-cleaning oven. I can say, delete this in a week. I don't have to remember to go back because, that webinar is going to be over in a week, and it's going to fall down in my inbox and I'm going to forget about it, right? So these are very cool, your archive policies, if you want to use them. And you can also assign them to a folder. So your policies or your retention policies can be assigned to a folder if you want to. So just by hovering over an email message, you can, several ways that you can manage that message. First, you can delete it. Okay, great. You have the ability to mark it as read or unread. That's a toggle. You can flag it for follow-up, and I'll show you that here in a second, or you can pin it. So pinning it puts it at the top of your inbox. If you're like me, everything I work on, if it falls below out of my radar, I'm not going to see it. So I don't necessarily remember that it's going to be there. So let's say Julian has asked me to work on this presentation for him. I'm going to manage that in a couple of ways. First, I'm going to pin it to the top of my inbox so it doesn't go out of sight, out of mind. Then I'm going to flag it for follow-up. So click the flag. If you right-click on the flag, it lets you flag it for a specific time frame. So I want to do that this week, or I want to do that next week, or I need to do that today, or I need to do that tomorrow. If you select the message, it shows it in the preview pane. And sometimes, we don't need to fill up each other's inboxes with responses like, okay, got it, thank you so much. We have this beautiful thing over here called like. Click that, and it just acknowledges that I've seen it, I'm acknowledging it, and I got it, without sending you yet another message that is going to end up, bogging you down in your inbox. As far as the attachment, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just thinking about another cool way to use that really quick. And, because I loathe reply alls unless they really have a purpose.
True.
And so I was thinking, like, let's say I wanted feedback on something. I might put in the draft and say, here's this file. Can you please like it in OA and let me know if it's good to go from your perspective, just like it. If you have feedback, then send me a reply and give me information.
Oh, that's a really good.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So one other option that's available in the web version, but not the desktop version yet, is this snooze option. It's like, okay, I don't want to pin it necessarily to the top, but I'm going to visit this next week. So I'm going to snooze it, and it will surface back up to in my inbox in the next week. This is available in the desktop or in the web version, but not the desktop version yet. I always say that because they kind of, sometimes it shows up in the desktop version first, and other times it shows up in the web version. So. All right, so here I can preview that file if I need to. I don't have to open it. I don't have to download it. I can just look at the file directly here in the browser window.
It's very black.
Very black. Well, I think it's trying really hard. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's Wi-Fi. It's the internet.
Well,
you're on.
No, I'm my hotspot now. Backup, right? So it's trying really hard to pull that information down, and then so I can see this without ever having to download, which is kind of nice, especially if these files are huge. Now, why is it showing up here like this? It's either an attachment or it could be a link to my file in my OneDrive. Now, if I want to save this for later, I can save it to my OneDrive instead of keeping it in my email, right? So that's probably one of my favorite things to be able to add those. Now, you can also, from here, we're going to download it if I wanted to, and it puts it on my local computer. I don't recommend doing that. Put it in your OneDrive. Or for some reason, they've made some updates recently, and this tenant was created back in January, so all of the features are not here, but I did just do a video on this in my blog about saving this to a team, and so there's some options there. And so this drop-down now says upload, and that gives you the option of where you want to upload it to. So there's little nuances that are different in this environment than the brand new ones that have come out. Sometimes when we get our demo environments, we don't have a choice of which one we have. All right, so everything we do here, just a little triage trick for you. I only go through my email about 3 times a day. Otherwise, I'm getting things done. We can get sucked into our inbox and never get anything done. And I have a couple of options for doing that. First of all, I want to make sure it's clean. So one of my favorite buttons is this lovely delete button that I can just get rid of stuff, right? I'm going to delete that file. If you flag it for follow-up, then it shows up in your to-do list. I'll show that here in a second. Or I like to use categories. So I use categories for, let's say this is a phone call that I need to make. This was a presentation that I need to do for Julian. So I'm going to right-click on that one and categorize it as a presentation. Maybe this is a meeting I need to schedule. I'm going to schedule that as a scheduling, and I need to do that this week. I have the customer improvement. Maybe that is a scheduling thing. So meetings I need to do, I'm going to categorize that as scheduling, and I need to do that today. All right, so I triage my email. So when I first come into my email box, I always filter it to be unread, because if I've read it, I've already touched it and dealt with it, okay? There's also this other option. People tend to turn off the other inbox. What other does is it looks at your email first and kind of decides if it's important to you or not important to you, what I call fluff in my inbox. It's not junk mail. It's not unsolicited spam. What it is things like, for me, are webinar announcements, or if I'm on a, if I've subscribed to a board and it sends me notifications, that type of thing. It's not necessarily work that I need to get done, but it's stuff that I've asked for. If you have files like this Yammer notification, I'm going to move this to the other folder. Oh, why won't it let me move to other? It should say move to other in here. Oh, wow. It's not there.
Gerbil.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay. The demo environments, we gotta love them. All right, so there should be a move to other. If it shows up in other, it shows up here. So other, you have to train it what is important to you. It doesn't just do it automatically. So you're like, when you put things from the inbox to the other inbox, or for the focus to the other inbox, it starts to learn what you feel is important. And if the stuff is showing up in other that you think should be in focus, then you can right click and put it in the focus inbox. Okay, so a lot of people turn that off. You turn it off and on and off here in the settings for Outlook. Here's the focus inbox. You can turn it on and off. Here's your conversation view in the browser if you prefer using the conversation view and the reading pane, how you want those to react. And there's a whole bunch of other settings here that you can explore. I encourage you to explore. Make it work for you. Now, how does this affect me when I go into my full-blown Outlook? Everything that I've done in the browser has translated. Here's all my stuff. So the browser version doesn't have all the capability that I like to use when I'm managing my email and my messages. This is one of the options here. So I have the presentation. I like to view this by category. And then I can put all of my ones that have been categorized. Here's all my phone calls I need to make. Here's all the presentations I need to work on. Here's all the scheduling I need to do. That way I can prioritize them. I can also go into my task list and see, here's the stuff that I need to do today. Here's, if I flagged it for next week or this week, it automatically knows when tomorrow becomes today and next week becomes this week. It keeps track of all of those. I see people do this manually with foldering all the time, and that's not effective, right? Now, if it's short term, I'm going to flag it. I didn't even tell the people yesterday, so here's your little bonus for coming for today. One of the best kept secrets of Outlook. If you like things, say, ooh, ah, then I know you like them. Let's say this is a litigation meeting that I need to schedule. If I drag and drop this to the tasks, it converts it to a task. So anything you drag from one folder in Outlook to another folder in Outlook converts it to the destination folder type. So if I take a person and drag it to the calendar, it creates a meeting. If I take an email and drag it to the people, it converts it to a contact and leaves the body of the email in the body of the contact. This is gold to me because I meet a lot of people when I'm out speaking or I'm doing, working at conventions and things like that. And they send me emails and a year later I'm like, who's this guy? I don't know who this guy is. And it helps me remember. The other thing that's nice is if you categorize an email message, it also categorizes anything that you create from it. Or if you categorize a person and drag it to the calendar, it maintains the categories across the different areas of Outlook. So that's probably one of my absolute favorite features, to be able to drag and drop That way, if I have a task, now I can do a couple of things. Let's say I have this review that Danny's asked me to do. I'm going to drag it to my tasks. I'm not doing this one. I'm going to assign this one over to to Karen and make her do it. So that keeps a synchronized copy of the task on my task list and hers.
Can I share one of my favorite things really quick?
Absolutely.
That I think people, it's been sitting there forever, but people don't notice. So in the top left in the new group, in your ribbon tab, the new items drop down. And so I watch people, I watch my husband, I don't mean to throw my husband under the bus, but I do watch him kind of get around and I'm like, why are you doing it the hard way? Right? So like you're in your email, which is typically where people are working. And now you go, oh, I got to create a meeting. I got to create a Teams meeting. You don't have to navigate to the calendar, go up, and you could just go right here. And whatever I need to do, I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and say, I want to create a new Teams meeting. And I don't have to navigate to the calendar first to do it. So I could be in the calendar view, click on new items, and I can go back to create a new email or create a new contact. So it's just a different way of navigating that probably has less clicks.
Yeah. Well, and that was new for me. I didn't know Teams meeting was in that menu now.
What? Oh, yeah. That's my go-to. I love that.
Well, mine is with you, same thing. Here's this, big long thing. Can we just talk? They have this whole thing going back and forth and back and forth. Can we just talk? This is ridiculous. There's a study done. If you were just sit down for a 15-minute meeting, you could save people hours of time bantering back and forth on an email. So if you have a long email that has a bunch of people, like this has all employees invited, and select reply with meeting, it converts it to a meeting and invites everybody, plus it leaves the email trail so you know why you're meeting. And now I can use the Teams meeting option. Hey, let's just meet.
Escalated it. Exactly.
Right. In one click, instead of having to go out and create a meeting and who all was on that message and add them all in. And
you can tie in your OneNote right there.
Yep, right here, meeting notes. Ta-da. So, all right. Those of you that aren't using OneNote, you're missing out. If you are OneNote users and you heard they're no longer going to develop the desktop version, guess what? We stormed the castle with our torches. Microsoft listened. There will not be a OneNote 2019 desktop version. We're too far through the product cycle for that, but they are going to continue to develop desktop. So can I get a in the cloud roars? Yeah, because we're very happy about that. All right, I'm going to send out one final poll. We're getting to the end of the time here, and would love to have your feedback again in the chat, in the questions. We so appreciate all of your interactivity today. We'll post this as a recording, and hopefully you learned something new. So let us know what your favorite thing was, and answer the poll question there. And I just want to, while you're doing that, I'm going to share out. We have some more cool stuff happening today.
Well, and I can see most people have responded. We got a lot of it was helpful. Now I hope I can remember it all. We're going to have we've recorded it. So we will make sure that's sent to you. You'll have to remember that we kind of lost internet from our fabulous facilitator midway through, but it's all good.
That's why I have my backup.
That's right, exactly. All right, awesome. So everybody submitted their poll. Sherry, I'm going to go ahead and end polling.
Okay.
And so you can go ahead.
Resources that I love to share. Matt Wade is a good friend of mine. I've met him in the speaking circuit, and he does these awesome infographics. They're at jump2365.com. So feel free to check those out. The Office 365 group, so when you create a group, what does that create as well? If you want to know more about that. Here's probably my favorite one is the periodic table of Office 365. So it talks about all the different apps and how they fit together and what their competing tools are. So if you're interested in what does this compete with, or if I'm already using this, which tool would meet that need? All right.
Kind of a what to use when guidance,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And an infographic that everybody loves. Again, here's all my contact information. So remember, just shortcut Sherry if you want to write that down, search for it. I pop up everywhere. And then we're having the webinar again today at 12 noon. Tell your friends to have everybody, invite them. Hopefully we'll get some more people there to learn more about Teams and the tricks that are available for you there. Leanne's going to be leading that session. And then let us know what else you need to know about. What other webinars would be beneficial to you, because our training schedules have kind of been completely upended, and we have other opportunities, but we're going to try and plug in webinars into our schedule wherever we can over the next several weeks, hopefully not months, that all this is going on and we're grounded. I'm like, I miss my, sometimes people are like, oh, you travel so much for your job. It's so glamorous. Like, yeah, until you're stuck in another place. But I start itching a little bit when I'm home too long. I start wanting to get back out there. So hopefully we can pick that up again soon.
So it's 11:30, actually 11:31. So our next session starts at 1. You're welcome, everybody. The next session we're going to do is really focused around teams. We start out a little bit as Sherry did in the office environment, looking at the apps, but I like it to be super involved and engaging. So I bring Sherry in, and if you guys want to have some banter through it, it's going to be awesome. We'll see you then, hopefully.
Right. Thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, it is actually Friday. Very good.
I know, it is Friday. I said that yesterday. I was like, it's not Friday yet. My brain was in Friday mode. All right. So we'll stay here for questions, and as you log off, we'll let us know if there's anything else you need. All right, looks like we have no more questions, so we're going to go ahead and end the webinar now. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.